A big welcome to our conversation today. The conversation is about spirituality and self-encounter and how they are connected. So let's take a pausing moment to invoke our inner reviewing self. You may choose to make mental notes or write your responses. In the pause I'm leaving now, I invite you to note what your spontaneous reaction was to each of those words when I spoke them. Spirituality, self-encounter. And now I'm inviting you to invoke your inner reviewing self again and note the feelings that went with that response to those two words, spirituality and self-encounter. And for the next little note, I'm giving an example. So in a retreat I was in, the retreat director said at the beginning, dreams could be important. So perhaps have a paper and pencil by your bed so you can make a note while you're half conscious. And me, the listener, made this internal comment, "Oh, I don't think so." And the energy with it was, I threw it out the window, quite forcefully. So, as well as feelings, when we hear something like spirituality, self-encounter, and how they're connected, there'll be a reaction within you. So I'm inviting you now to pause and pick up that. So, does it have the effect of new information for you, or you're not interested, or you're curious, or you're not going to listen, or you are going to listen? So I haven't said all the words that you could have, but anyway, I'm inviting you to do that now in the space I'm leaving. And the last part of this exercise is, I'm inviting you to make a conscious decision about how you're going to listen to what goes after this exercise. We've just engaged in a self-encounter experience. So, because we paused, there are aspects that were really there within your being that weren't in your conscious awareness until we paused. And how that happened was that we invoked capacities that as human beings we all have. We have the capacity to pause. We have the capacity to resurface emotional residue. We have the capacity to have an interior conversation about these different awarenesses. And we have the capacity to make a decision about the way we will go forward. And so, this is spirituality in actional process. Let's consider now what spirit itself is in regard to human beings. We have a tangible human heart. And really, if your blood doesn't flow from your heart and get pumped, you're not alive. We also have an intangible heart. That is, we might say about someone that they're big-hearted. And when we say that, we don't mean that they've got a physically big heart. So there is, underneath that physicality, an unconscious, an intangible understanding of heart, an energy underneath the physical. So, the person that you said they were big-hearted may not be aware of their personal quality that is being named as a big heart. However, within that person, that quality has come from that person's unique integration of aspects of love arising from unconscious realities which are underpinning what I am naming as intangible heart. So, the first note I'm making is there are conscious and unconscious realities in our intangible heart. However, that's not the only place. We have many needs that are in our unconscious. Safety, control, freedom, esteem, survival. And for the purposes of this conversation, I am choosing to expand on the human need for love, which is from our intangible heart, about the connection between spirituality and self-encounter. 2 points to note are this intangible heart has content that we don't know, energies that we didn't initiate and that we're not aware of at the moment. And as well as that, there's a means within our systems that draws us ahead into more than we know at this present time. So let's look at love a little bit more. In this intangible reality within us, there's a desire and a need to be able to love. And as well, there's an intangible need and desire to be loved. And if those aren't addressed according to our own unique individual reality, then we do things to compensate. And there's another aspect of love in this unconscious that I'm naming today. And that is there's an urge to belong. And when we think about it, the strongest punishment that can be given to a person is to be in solitary confinement or to be ostracised. Both of those situations bring tremendous distress and suffering. So that's a little bit about spirit. The next 3 letters, UAL, when added to a word in English, means action or process. And we all have the equipment to process what comes up from the residue in unconscious, or what that caring essence within us knows is good for us to be aware of. And so, everything we experience is held in the unconscious, and I'm calling that residue. And as we saw in our first exercise, we have a capacity to dialogue with what arises from the unconscious. And we will be mentioning later that what arises is what grabs our attention, like niggles, tingles, nudges, clangs, jolts. And it's not common, but often an inner disturbance has embedded in it an invitation to move beyond, in a positive way, where we are now, in our inner being. And as we've experienced, we have a capacity to activate our inner reviewing self. And also in what we did, but it happens over and over and over in our lives, we've got a capacity to choose. And I'm adding the phrase, move in flow within us, stretching edge invitations, because the connection with spirituality means that it needs to be an invitation from within, called forth by something that's happened, arisen from the unconscious, and that will be to bring balance to what's gone out of balance in our patterns, and also perhaps in the caring that is within all of us beyond our awareness, to move us to become to more maturity and our best self. So ITY, when added to an English word, means state, quality, degree. And that state, quality, degree of changes which happen in this unconscious level of love and heart is desires, preferences, and don't likes. And these desires, preferences, and don't likes have an unconscious element before arising into consciousness. For example, you may like hard eggs, and I definitely like soft eggs, but that wasn't a conscious decision that came out of intellect. No, there was something beyond our conscious choice that's what we like or what we don't like. And so, in all kinds of changes, we have 3 strands of choice. We can ignore or reject, and those 2 consequences have downpulling, negative, not good for us, non-growth, growth going backwards effects. And I'm talking about stretching edge invitations, those ones to bring balance to what's gone out of balance and to move us forward in a positive way from where we are. And so saying yes to those is the way that self-encounter is connected to spirituality, the 3 parts of the meaning of that word. So let's summarise what I've just said. When unconscious arisings through tingles, clangs, niggles, nudges, jolts, inner disturbances, which have stretching edges, invitations embedded in them, those stretching edge invitations are to bring balance to patterns that are out of balance and, or really, invite us to move to more growth. And that is the invitation that is embedded often in inner disturbance of all kinds. So let's look at this a little bit more. Okay, so there's a dark unconscious underneath. And it's not the whole of the unconscious, but now and again, actually more than now and again, these invitations come up which will invite us to bring balance to what's gone out of balance in the patterns of our lives, and also to take us beyond where we are in inner maturity and growth and peace and freedom, in a positive way. So how can this happen? It happens by activating self-encounter experiences like we did at the beginning, and out of those notings that we can make through our inner reviewing self, sorting out what are stretching edge invitations. So, out of the unconscious, some things arise, we don't initiate it. And we have the power to say yes. And that tools in the middle are like that first exercise we did. And if we say yes to bringing more balance to our lives where things have gone out of balance, and also where we take note of how to move positively into the future of who we are becoming, we will come to more inner freedom, balance, equanimity, peace. I haven't got them all. Oh, definitely healing. There are a few more, of course. And each flavour of that is individual to each person. So here's yet another diagram to say these things in a different way. So there are two tracks. And for us, we have a conscious track and an unconscious track. And if you look at the beginning of this track, there's a separation between the two. And that's what happens early on in our life. We're busy enough coping with life, dealing with what's not perfect for us, and expanding the giftings that we have. Then, as we go on, some of those patterns have gone out of balance and we need to mature because we're acquiring wisdom. And so, as you see further along in the track, the division is not so clear. And when we come to our inner reviewing self and our inner intangible reality, that bringing together is about self-encounter. Now, as we engage in self-encounter, we haven't a clue where that will lead us. So, on the decision you made on our first exercise, you haven't a clue what you're going to get out of this or a clue about what you'd miss if you decided not to. Well, of course, you won't be listening. Okay. The path continues. But as in real life, we can't know clearly what is further ahead. However, there's one more reality, one more aspect of this intangible reality that is ours, uniquely ours, and that is there's something within us which is always moving us ahead of where we are at the moment. And that ahead dream is like the light on the horizon. And that only happens when we say yes to these stretching edge invitations. So, how can all of these things I've been talking about be integrated into our life? By activating the capacities we all have to integrate what arises from the unconscious, which is for positive moving forward or for balancing. So, another way to summarise it. When something arises from the unconscious in the form of a tingle, clang, niggle, nudge, jolt, inner disturbance, we can dialogue with it. We can activate our inner reviewing self to look at what the dialogue is and where it came from and what the energy is. And then we can sort the invitations from those that are payback, squinty eyes, scratchy energy. We can sort those ones out from the ones that are for moving in flow with inner stretching edge invitations, which will bring us to balance a pattern that's out of balance or will expand our inner growth. So how do we do this? Actually, we're all doing it all the time, but this is putting some focus into what we're doing, and it will accomplish more faster than if we just let it happen, which it is happening. So the how. Pausing, as we did. Hearkening, which we did. That's really giving conscious attention to the listening and the energies in the listening. And as I've said several times, saying yes to stretching edge invitations. And what happens if we live that over and over when the invitations turn up? We'll come to balance and expanding the potential of who we can become. So, another summary. Self-encounter is happening whether we are aware of it or not, or whether we call it spiritual or not. And this is how I put together at an overall framework level what I've been saying. We are all spiritual because we all experience self-encounter as life unfolds for us. And also as we respond to the various patterns that impinge on and emerge from life experience. So, pausing, hearkening, saying yes, balancing are ways to action our capacity to deepen spirituality, to come to know ourselves better, and to know more about who we are becoming. So if we can take on board the what and the how of what I've been saying, the outcome will be more inner freedom, more balance, more equanimity, more healing, more openness, more peace. So, in our lifetime, we all encounter parts of ourselves that we're in unconscious. And we have a capacity, if we choose, to consciously encounter invitations to bring balance to what's out of balance and to move beyond inner growth positions that we're at the present moment. And also, to some degree, the promise of who we are invited to become will be revealed to us in the satisfaction of experiencing more freedom, balance, etc., etc. So, my summary of the whole: the measure of our spirituality corresponds to the measure of our self-encounter experiences. Out of our unconscious, beyond our knowing, there's a caring within us which, through tingles, clangs, niggles, nudges, jolts, disturbances, which in the long run have stretching edge invitations embedded in them, that arises into our conscious, and we hold it. And as we integrate and activate our inner reviewing self and use our desire and preferences and choices in a balanced way, we will come to a measure of freedom, healing, equanimity, peace, all of those things I said. And so I believe that while we don't name it, spirituality is intrinsic to where we are and how much we are conscious about engaging in self-encountering.